lights strobe across the cul-de-sac, a tow truck groans, and an HOA president in a visor is shrieking with a panicked voice, "It's a bomb!" while an unamused bomb tech knocks on the side of my parked armored truck like it's a watermelon at a roadside stand. Neighbors film with their phones raised high. The tow cable snaps with a violent crack. Somewhere in the distance, a chihuahua howls mournfully. I sip coffee on my stoop and wave casually. "Morning, Beverly. My name is Graham Cortez, quiet homeowner at Larks Point, the kind of townhome development where every mailbox is beige and every email from the HOA is a threat disguised as a newsletter. I work from home, keep to myself, and park in spot 14. Or I used to, until Beverly Keane, HOA president and part-time siren of the cul-de-sac, decided my spot was better utilized by her college son's dented Civic. Cones appeared overnight like mushrooms after rain. Then came a handwritten sign that read temporary HOA use in her distinctive loopy handwriting. Temporary stretched to weeks like taffy in summer heat. I was told with a dismissive wave to use guest parking like everyone else, which meant 3 blocks away by the retention pond and teen skateboard Olympics. The walk wasn't the issue. The principle was. I'd paid for that spot in my HOA fees for 5 years straight. Beverly's son hadn't paid a dime. When I pointed this out at the monthly meeting, she smiled with the warmth of an ice sculpture and said the board had voted on temporary reassignment for community benefit. The board was her sister-in-law, and a guy named Phil who nodded at everything she said like a dashboard bobblehead. Beverly started citing me for what she called parking attitude. I wish I were making this up, but the pink slips piled up like autumn leaves. The violations read like poetry written by someone who hated both poetry and logic. Improper angle within stripes was the first, followed by tire presentation, and my personal favorite, vehicle casting shadow on adjacent shrub. She photographed my car at 5 a.m. with flash so bright it woke my neighbor's baby. She sent me drone footage labeled evidence in emails carbon copied to the entire board. The footage showed my car parked perfectly straight, which she claimed was aggressively compliant. One morning she placed one of those bright orange boots on my perfectly legal park in the guest area. Never mind, she didn't have authority to boot anything but a mood. The lock was from a Halloween store, complete with a foam chain. I cut it off with kindergarten scissors and left it on her doorstep with a note that said, "You dropped your toy." When I moved her cones aside one evening and reclaimed spot 14 for exactly 1 hour to unload groceries, she slid a note under my door written in red ink. "Further defiance will escalate," it warned, like I was dealing with international sanctions instead of suburban parking. The next day, the spot was freshly painted blue with a stenciled wheelchair icon that looked crooked even from space. A bolted sign appeared that definitely came from a Halloween store because it still had the price tag attached. She told the neighborhood Facebook group with dramatic flair that I'd stolen a handicap space from a veteran grandmother. The comments went volcanic within minutes. People who'd never seen me called me heartless. Someone suggested I should be arrested. Beverly liked every comment and added crying emoji reactions to the particularly harsh ones. I reviewed the security video from my porch cam with the patience of a detective on a cold case. At 1:13 a.m., Beverly appeared like a parking phantom, wearing a reflective sash and carrying an arts and crafts tote that rattled with spray paint cans. She painted my spot herself, taking breaks to admire her work and adjust her visor. At 1:31 a.m., she approached my car with something sharp and keyed my front bumper with 3 crisp letters that spelled KAR before getting spooked by a passing cat mid-E. The security light caught her face perfectly as she scurried away like a guilty raccoon. At 7:05 a.m. that same morning, she called a private tow company claiming my car was abandoned and leaking fluids. It wasn't leaking anything but her patience apparently. The tow truck driver took one look at my current registration and told her to pound sand, though not in those exact words. I sent the footage to City Parking Enforcement with a formal complaint. I sent another copy to ADA Compliance with documentation about the fake handicap sign. I also sent it to our community policing officer who'd been wondering who kept making false reports about suspicious vehicles that turned out to be food delivery drivers. I emailed Beverly directly with a cease and desist letter drafted in my calmest professional tone. At the bottom, I added a postscript that read, "You missed the E." Her reply came within 3 minutes, all caps except for one line. "You're out of your depth, Graham. The board decides the rules, not the law." I replied with a calendar invite titled Field Demo, Legal Parking, irremovable object, scheduled for Saturday at 9 a.m. She declined the meeting, but I knew she'd be watching from her window with binoculars she pretended were for bird watching. On Saturday morning, I didn't park my sedan in spot 14. Instead, I parked a decommissioned armored cash truck that I'd restored with a friend who collects weird machines like some people collect stamps. It was street legal, insured, and titled as a historic vehicle with all the proper paperwork filed with the DMV. The matte gray behemoth fit the exact dimensions of spot 14 like it was measured for it, sitting right between her prized petunias and what remained of her dignity. I chalked the wheels with industrial blocks, dumped the air from the tires until they looked like giant pancakes, and set the transmission in a gear tow operator's call character building because it requires superhuman effort to overcome. Then I invited city parking, code enforcement, and a very curious local news freelancer to observe what I called a routine HOA interaction. I set up a lawn chair, poured fresh coffee, and waited. When Beverly marched out in her visor at 9:15 sharp, she saw the armored truck idling like an elephant with asthma and stopped so fast she left skid marks on the sidewalk with her orthopedic sandals. Her face went through several colors not found in nature. She shrieked with a voice that cracked like thunder, "You can't park that monstrosity here." I smiled with practiced calm and said, "Show me the bylaw that says no vehicles weighing as much as your ego." She actually checked her phone for that specific bylaw before realizing what I'd said. Her face turned a shade of purple that would have concerned a cardiologist. She called a tow company while standing 5 feet from me, speaking loud enough for the entire street to hear. "Yes, I need an emergency tow." "No, it's not a regular car. It's a tank." "Well, not exactly a tank, but close enough." The tow truck arrived in 20 minutes, the driver taking one look at my armored truck and laughing so hard he had to lean against his rig. He tried anyway because Beverly promised to pay triple rate in cash. The cable went taut, the engine roared, and then came the snap. The cable whipped back like an angry snake, and everyone jumped except the bomb tech who hadn't arrived yet. That came after Beverly placed a second call, this time to 911. Hissing into her phone with barely contained hysteria that there were explosives inside and I was threatening the HOA with what she called a bank heist in progress. I heard her add details that would have been creative if they weren't completely fabricated. She claimed she saw me loading suspicious packages at midnight and that I'd threatened to blow up the community center if I didn't get my parking spot back. Police rolled up in force. So did a bomb squad in full gear, a K-9 unit, and my neighbor Todd in pajama pants holding a GoPro like the Pulitzer Prize was on sale at the corner store. Officers asked for documentation with professional calm while Beverly shrieked about terrorism and homeland security. I handed them a binder I'd prepared for this exact moment containing the title, insurance, registration, photos of Beverly painting the fake handicap spot at 1:13 a.m., receipts for blue paint from Keane Home Services LLC, which was her husband's company, and a printout of our bylaws where nothing prohibited historic vehicles in assigned spaces. I'd also included a copy of the state law about false handicap designations and the penalties involved. Meanwhile, dispatch was checking the 911 caller ID. The officer's eyebrows rose when the number matched previous false reports about suspicious vehicles, aggressive dandelions, and a noise complaint about a silent electric car. The bomb tech finished tapping my truck with the enthusiasm of someone checking expired milk and announced loudly, "It's clean. Completely empty except for some old coffee cups and an air freshener." 2 officers walked across the lawn to Beverly with that specific walk police use when they're about to ruin someone's day. She tried a final flourish, proclaiming with imperial certainty, "I'm the HOA president," as if that came with diplomatic immunity and a get-out-of-jail-free card. They explained in calm, measured tones that false reporting, vandalism, and tampering weren't amenities covered by HOA dues. The visor wobbled like a dying bird as the cuffs clicked. She screamed about lawsuits and her husband's golf buddy who was supposedly a judge. The golf buddy turned out to be a retired dentist. Beverly was charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor that carried up to 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. She was also fined $8,000 for the unauthorized ADA markings and faced a federal complaint for ADA fraud. The judge issued a restraining order requiring her to stay 50 feet from my driveway, my vehicles, and any paint aisle in any store. The HOA held an emergency vote that night, and Beverly was removed 22-1, the lone one being her son who still couldn't park straight if his life depended on it. When they announced the vote tally, She stood up so fast her visor flew off and landed in the punch bowl, and screamed with raw disbelief, "You can't do this to me! I made this place what it is." Someone muttered, "Exactly the problem," and she stormed out sobbing into her cell phone about conspiracies and calling her lawyer who turned out to be a real estate agent she'd met at spin class.